Gospel fans were left completely shocked when powerhouse singer Leandrea Johnson finally confronted Jonathan McReynolds over a scandal that no one believed would ever come out. What started as small whispers on social media turned into a face-to-face truth that shook the entire gospel world. You won't believe how quickly the news spread and how deeply it cut through a community that had always held Jonathan as one of their brightest and cleanest stars. For years, Jonathan McReynolds had been celebrated as the golden boy of gospel music. He was praised for his soft yet powerful voice, his uplifting songs, and his image of purity that made people feel he was untouchable. From the small churches in Chicago to Grammy stages, his journey looked like a destiny that could never take an unexpected turn. But here is the shocking part. Even the most perfect-looking stories often carry secrets, and Jonathan's image was about to face the biggest test of his life. Let me tell you, Jonathan was not just a singer to his fans. He was seen as a guide, a man who shared Bible studies, preached about living right, and encouraged young Christians to hold on to purity in a world full of temptations. His songs were conversations with God, filled with struggles and honesty, which made him different from many artists who looked too polished. What made this story different was that Jonathan had built his brand on being real and transparent. Fans trusted him more than they trusted most celebrities. That was why, when whispers of scandal started, the disappointment felt heavier. It was not like gossip about a normal star. It felt like a betrayal. At first, the whispers seemed too small to believe. A few cryptic posts appeared online, suggesting Jonathan's private life was not the same as the pure image he showed in public. Some hinted about relationships that didn't look right, while others claimed he was not living by the same moral code he preached about. Fans dismissed these as rumors because Jonathan's name was too clean to be attached to anything dirty. But this is how scandals grow. The whispers refused to die. Instead, they became louder. And with every new screenshot, every new claim, and every small insider confirmation, the story started to look real. This is where it gets interesting. Bloggers and gospel commentators jumped in. They didn't just talk about gossip, they began connecting the dots. They compared Jonathan's public statements about faith and integrity with the alleged private actions, and the difference was impossible to ignore. The craziest part was that it wasn't only outsiders talking. Some church leaders quietly admitted there might be more truth in the rumors than people knew. While some tried to defend him, others could no longer pretend the situation was baseless. The gap between Jonathan's message and the life he was accused of living became the real scandal, and for many fans, that hurt far more than the actual actions. As the rumors kept spreading, the gospel world was waiting for someone to step forward and either clear Jonathan's name or finally expose what was really happening. And destiny took an unexpected turn when that voice came from none other than Leandrea Johnson. She was not just another artist in the gospel industry. She was a powerhouse who had already lived through storms of her own. People knew her as raw, fearless, and brutally honest. She had gone through her own scandals, battles with addiction, clashes with church culture, divorces, and moments where she had shocked the gospel industry with her unpolished truth. What made her different was that she never pretended to be perfect. She showed her scars and said, "This is who I am." And that is why, when she finally spoke about Jonathan, everyone paid attention. But here is the shocking part. Leandrea did not come with a polite statement or a carefully crafted message. She came out strong, bold, and direct. She went live, speaking to her fans in real time, and she didn't whisper Jonathan's name. She said it openly, making sure there was no confusion about who she was addressing. This is where it gets interesting because her words were not like ordinary criticism. They came with the weight of someone who had already been dragged by the world, someone who had faced her own truth publicly. When she called Jonathan a two-faced figure, accusing him of preaching one thing while living another, It hit differently. She said the world didn't need any more fake saints, and if you were going to sing about living holy, then you had to live holy. What makes the story different is the way Leandrea framed her call out. She didn't say it to destroy him. She reminded everyone that she too had made mistakes, that her sins had been exposed to the world, and she had faced her punishment openly. Her point was simple. If she had to stand in front of the world and face her truth, then Jonathan should too. The craziest part was how many people agreed with her. Fans who had been silently frustrated finally felt their voice had been spoken. She wasn't talking down from a place of pride. She was speaking as someone who had walked the same painful road. You won't believe how fast her words spread. That live video went viral almost instantly. Blogs reposted it, fans debated it, and church leaders could not ignore it anymore. Some praised Leandrea for being brave, finally pulling the curtain on hypocrisy in the gospel world. Others felt she had gone too far, saying private matters should be handled privately. But either way, the damage was done. Jonathan's silence after her bold confrontation made it even worse. In today's world, silence often speaks louder than words, and every second Jonathan didn't respond made people believe the claims more. As the storm kept growing, Jonathan's silence became the biggest talking point. Fans waited for him to deny, explain, or even just acknowledge the accusations, but nothing came. And you won't believe how quickly that silence turned into fuel for the fire. Supporters argued that he was being wise by not giving attention to negativity, but critics said his quietness looked like guilt. This is how the narrative started shifting. Jonathan, once known as the golden boy of gospel, was now being painted as someone who had something to hide. The very trust that had built his career was cracking right in front of everyone's eyes. But here's the shocking part. The controversy didn't just stay between Jonathan and Leandrea. It began spreading into churches, gospel events, and even secular media. Some churches quietly canceled his appearances, no longer wanting to risk the backlash of hosting him. At the same time, his most loyal fans pushed back hard, claiming the devil was using Leandrea to tear down a man of God. This is where it gets interesting, because the gospel community had not been this divided in years. On one side were those demanding truth and accountability. On the other were those shouting for loyalty and protection of a beloved artist. What makes this story different is that Leandrea wasn't some outsider throwing stones. She was part of the same world, with scars and struggles that everyone already knew about. That made her words impossible to dismiss as jealousy or attention-seeking. The craziest part is that Jonathan's silence gave her voice even more power. The more he stayed quiet, the louder her truth sounded. And soon, it wasn't just about Jonathan's alleged actions. It was about a bigger issue that had long been hidden under polished gospel music and smiling church leaders. Destiny took an unexpected turn when Leandrea used the moment to push beyond Jonathan's personal scandal. She began pointing to the wider culture of hypocrisy, where leaders preached holiness on stage but lived differently behind closed doors. Her confrontation opened the door for others to start whispering too, sharing stories that had been buried for years. Fans who once defended gospel artists blindly were now questioning if they had been fooled all along. For the first time, it felt like the carefully protected image of gospel purity was under real attack, and Jonathan was at the center of it. The longer Jonathan stayed silent, the heavier the weight of the scandal became. People started to wonder if this was really about one man's mistakes or if it was the beginning of something much bigger. You won't believe how quickly the conversation shifted. What started as whispers about Jonathan now turned into questions about the entire gospel industry. Fans began asking, if Jonathan could be hiding things, who else is doing the same? This is how the confrontation stopped being just about two artists and grew into a full-blown debate about trust, faith, and the image the church has built for years. But here is the shocking part. Leandrea's bold words didn't just call Jonathan out. They gave courage to others. Bloggers, insiders, and even smaller gospel voices began speaking openly about the cracks in the system. They reminded people that gospel artists are not above mistakes and that pretending they are only creates more pain when the truth comes out. This is where it gets interesting because for the first time in a long time, the gospel community was forced to look at itself in the mirror. The polished image, the perfect stage performances, and the holy lifestyle preached from pulpits were all questioned by fans who now demanded transparency. What makes this story different is that it wasn't exposed by an enemy of the church. It came from within, from someone who knew the cost of honesty and still chose to speak up. The craziest part is that Leandrea wasn't trying to end Jonathan's career. She was trying to shake a system that had been hiding behind closed doors for too long. And in doing so, she sparked a conversation that may change how people see gospel music forever. Destiny took an unexpected turn in that moment. Jonathan's spotless reputation, which had taken years to build, now stood on shaky ground. Leandrea, who once faced her own storms, became the voice of truth for many who had stayed silent. And the gospel world, once united under the sound of praise, was now split by questions of accountability and honesty. What happens next remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. The confrontation between Leandrea Johnson and Jonathan McReynolds was not just another gossip headline. It was a wake-up call that left fans, leaders, and even fellow artists wondering what truths might be revealed next.